the other thing is that this.
How does it change the option choices, the option menus
Yeah,
earlier on?
and how are they linked together? I mean, there must be a dynamic linking between those pieces, so as one pole comes in, something else pushes.
I think what you're talking about is this is the project right here. So I was looking at this entire diagram and how it works, but a lot of this is already sort of figured out,
Yeah.
and it's already done. But this was sort of my idea that this education software that becomes something that's influenced by this and then outputs the material info chart. So that was in the first alpha version where it's giving you education on sustainability and things are showing up on that website so that you're getting this information given to you, much like when you go to the car website, it tells you like, well, if you buy these tires, they're better in the snow and it does this. It's giving you all of that, and I think, yeah, this does need to be developed. It comes in later in the entire process. It's been a year, so a lot of it was.
You don't have to make excuses for yourself. I mean, it's a dialogue we're having, so
Yeah.
don't worry. But I just think that if there's something, there's an element there which is, it's an educational element, but I wouldn't treat it as simply educational. It's a feedback tool.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you've got to delve into what those data sets actually mean, right? And there has to be some sort of metrics of significance. Like if that thing drops in, and it's more than just sort of changing the code, right? I would probably challenge you that you're fairly superficial in the way that you're thinking about that as a data set.
Yeah, I have a question about your role in the project, and I think the way you presented it, it seems like you consider yourself to be almost neutral in the process, and I don't think you are. And I think you should even assert more of a point of view in the process so that, maybe you pose this question that, what would be interesting about duplicating the Farnsworth house? Like, why should we make this? Because we can, and there's some value in the design that you facilitated, the process of people being able to rebuild it. But I think all of those points along the spoke, those are points that you place in. And if you identify, a critique of the project, like obviously environmentally, it's kind of a disaster, functionally, you pose your critique for the house, and then you can actually propose solutions to those. And you design a response to that, and that's a set. It's one of these data sets that can be selected, but it isn't as if that's a neutral choice. You have to choose, like, if I want to make this environmentally responsive, do I just put, why don't you just infill it with concrete block instead of glass? That would be one choice. But, curtains on the inside, curtains on the outside, do they move? There's a whole bunch of ways you could respond to the problems of the house, and that's where I think your, perspective could come in.
I think moving forward, I guess, for the end of the semester, the book, I guess I'm posing this question to you, that development of those axes and sort of giving definite answers as to how they're being defined is important. Or something else.
That's time.
I'm more
Yes.
interested in a bigger picture sort of question. Like, first of all, I want to congratulate you because I think this is really a thesis project.
Thank
I
you.
think you really dove, off the high dive into the deep end pool, blindfolded, like all of it. I think it's really interesting investigation. And I'm not even sure if I need for you to answer the question, but I'm wondering where you're at in the process of a bigger picture question of, like, I'm trying to figure out with your critique of this and at the same time making this accessible to people. Is this your sort of celebration of modernism and bringing it out and making it more public and understood to the average person? Or is this like your final nail in the coffin of modernism? Like, okay, we need to finish this off, get past it, and move on.
Accessibility to it.
The first one?
Yep.
Okay. That's the only.
I think there's merit in it. I do think that the original Farnsworth house is a disaster, and there's definitely problems with it. And I think it can be improved upon, but there's some of the core concepts of the open plan and sort of the versatility of it that can be expressed in sort of how many versions can come out of that core concept of the bays and how it expands. And I think that's important to this system in particular and how it
Do you embrace
functions.
the possibility that some people might have, like me, have thought that your answer was going to be what was behind door number 2? Because I totally would have thought you answered it that way. And I don't have a problem with how you answer it, but I guess then, do you want it to be open-ended, that people could interpret it in that way? Or do you want them to only be down the road of celebration and accessibility? Then I think you do need to answer the question that these guys are asking to address more specifically.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I like the answer too. It's like, I think there are real problems with the front of the house, and everyone should have one. You know, it's like it's a little weird bit of both, which is what architecture is today, right? A lot of crappy houses out there, and everyone can have one, right? So modernism is kind of part of that.
I wouldn't sanitize your personality from it. I wouldn't attempt to do that. I mean, bias is that's how we work. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with bias.
Yeah.
It's the engine, how why we do things. But I mean, I think to answer explicitly, I think you need to me, I think at this point, the real is where the possibility is. But I would actually like to see it much more responsive in terms of scale and elements as well. You know, so, you know, instead, and I'd like to see the relationship between slopes. It may not be 8, and it may not be them. I think taking it from Mies van der Rohe, he had a really strange defensive position where he kept saying, well, Mies said this, and Mies said, so it's okay, right? But I think you have to abandon that, and it becomes yours at that point, right? Because you're the one operating it. And, you know, there's an argument that most of us all live in these Van der Rohe buildings right now, right? And his building mechanisms and systems were commercialized. Passage, the curtain wall is Mies van der Rohe design, right? Every commercial building you have is Mies van der Rohe, right? Because it was easy to systemize, produce, and sell. So he is the origin of most commercial buildings, as it is.
Okay.
Bring your own personality a little bit more into it than that.